again, as we try to keep in tune with the strategies and transition motto, um, the difficulty of decision making, the difficulty of emotions that we all kind of go through are they're huge, they're big. And we have to layer things a piece at a time. And when you can look at yourselves and look at where your children were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where they're at today, it's hard to take a look at a lot of steps of progress because we're still stuck in the middle of something else. Because no matter how we paint the picture, it's always going to be something else. We've asked ourselves so many times, when's it going to get back to normal? We're defining a new normal every day. And again, it's us as the greatest advocates, and I don't like the word advocacy. We just need to be there because what do? We crash through walls, we break through windows to do the best that we can to protect our kids. And that's the beauty of the system out there. And one of the things that the next gentleman that's going to come up and speak is a gentleman who I've gotten to know probably about 7 to 8 years ago when his elderly mom had come into our office trying to figure out what to do with his brother who's now 64 years old. Approximately 2 years ago, Mom passed away, and the beauty from my perspective is being able to see something that came together, not through a lack of hard work, not through a lot of efforts, a lot of tears, disruptions, but it's one that I can feel very pleased to have been able to see that the amount of disruption became minimal. And again, it started with Mom's wish of what was I going to do tomorrow when I'm no longer here. And to see how the pieces fit and to watch it today and to be able to watch 3 siblings being able to have their own world still and a brother who lives in the house on his own and having those services good in place after Mom had sat back and after about 20 years of just kind of not needing services anymore, again, putting it more into an inactive status. And I'd like to bring up Pat Proulx. His wife will tell you that him and I have a bromance. But man, I have a lot of respect for her again. And that's what's so great about what I get to do. I get to meet a lot of great families, a lot of great advocates for their children and for their brothers and sisters. And with that, I'd like to introduce Pat.
Hello. Thanks, Grady. I'm the mosquito, I think, what they were talking about. So true. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our story. One of the things I want to start with is patience and persistence is the key in this process. I so wish I would have had a seminar like this before we started this process because information is key. And we're still, and it'll be ongoing in your child's life as you try to get services. Information is going to be key because it's always evolving. Your child's needs are going to evolve. In my case, growing up with a special needs brother, my brother was born with a condition called Sturge-Weber, which caused a brain damage or a brain bleed, which caused some severe mental retardation. My mom, through 60 years, always cared for my brother, never had any services. I don't know if she probably just wasn't aware of services for Mike. So she took care of all his needs. Well, as she was getting older and her health was starting to deteriorate, she wanted to be sure that Mike was taken care of. And we started that conversation. Well, it was actually the letter that somebody mentioned where they're going to take your resources away from Medi-Cal. That's what started it. We got that letter too, and we didn't know what to do. It was actually, ironically, through a bank teller that we got to know very well. We were sharing this with the bank teller, and the bank teller knew about Grady and Dignity Group. and got us in touch. That's kind of where it started. We went with that letter to him. We sat down with Forrest and Grady and his staff, and we asked, what can we do? And they started helping us come up with a game plan for Mike's care. My mother was, in her trust, was very clear about the home and Mike's care. She wanted Mike taken care of and to remain in that home as long as possible. So through Dignity Group coming up with a plan for us, the first thing was, well, my mother was still living, but her health was failing pretty rapidly, was to get a special needs trust, which you're going to hear about later after lunch, in the name of my brother, to protect his assets, to protect the home, keep him in there, and a small, very modest inheritance that my mother left for his care. That's where it started, and then once we got that done, my mother passed a short time later, and my two sisters and I became responsible for my brother's care. It was shortly after that, and again through the support of Dignity Group, that they got us going on the path of getting services through IHSS, in-home support services, because we wanted Mike to stay in the home. However, Mike needed 24-hour support, supervision, let's put it that way. He needed 24-hour supervision. When IHSS came out to evaluate my brother, they didn't see it that way. They gave us very minimal hours. In fact, it was like 2.6 hours per day for my brother. Persistence is the key here. We didn't agree with that, so we asked, what can we do? Again, Dignity Group helped us with the appeal process. So we appealed that verdict, but we came armed and ready to prove. And and this is how we did. Everybody's situation in here is going to be different, but this is mine. We went to a neuropsychologist, and we had a full evaluation done on my brother at Casa Colina. We went to his treating physician of 30 years, and we had them fill out a detailed report of Mike and what he's capable and incapable of doing. Both reports were instrumental in the appeal process because both came back saying he needed 24-hour supervision. We went back to IHSS. We went before a judge. We presented those. And again, I'm making this short. This is a 6-month, if not more, time period. We won. So we got full care for Mike for IHSS, but remember, that's not 24-hour care. The next step was IRC, Inland Regional Center. We applied. We took Mike to Inland Regional Center. He was evaluated, and they agreed to let Mike into Inland Regional Center, which has been phenomenal. What a great place. Wonderful people, great support, and that's currently where we are now. We've chosen who you heard Bob talk earlier through Pathways. That's who we chose to the vendor through Inland Regional Center, who will provide services. They also came out and evaluated my brother to see what kind of needs he had. That's in the process right now of evaluation to get more care for him. That's where we currently are with the IRC. It's just a long process, and like I said before, information is going to be the key for all of you. Don't stop digging through. Like I said, Dignity Group has been incredible for us, even if it's just an ear to hear. This is not where I expected to be, caring for my 64-year-old brother. But that's what life brings us, and I'm just happy that I have support through Grady and Dignity Group. Did you have any other questions, Grady, or?
Are you finished reading the speech I wrote for you?
No. I
I think that, is we were able to work with Pat's family, and Pat will also tell you that every time I saw him, probably for the first 6 months to a year of our relationship, I kept calling him Mike. It's just now, in the last 6 months, that I finally realized his name is Pat, not his brother Mike. But what was interesting is that when his mom did come into our office and some of the things that we had looked at, that yellow envelope or that yellow piece of paper that we tell people to throw away because it's just not as applicable to our families, especially if we structure things properly. And that's the thing that we look at, because mom's greatest goal was that she wanted to be able to keep her son at home. But we also had to make sure that, because mom could have left the house directly to him, Social Security would have sat there and said, hey, it's not an available resource, child will still be eligible for benefits. The problem is if Mike's care got so demanding and he had to move out of that house, all of a sudden what was once upon a time an unavailable resource could become an available resource. If that house got sold, then it becomes an available resource. So we sat back and said, what's going to make more sense is going to create a tool that will never ever be an available resource. It will not be available so that those rules and getting that yellow letter with a disability and having to pay back Medi-Cal, but because it was planned and it was structured right. And that's so key and so important, because we, again, having the plan that his mom had gave us the ability to sit back and put her wishes and her dreams into effect. It gave us the ability to put the resources out there. Now, Pat says we helped him appeal. No, I was there to talk to him because he did all the work. He had, again, that burr to get it accomplished. He had that desire and that drive to make a difference in his brother's life. At the same token, a difference in his life as well. And we don't know, any of us, when that time is going to come. And if you'd asked me if I was going to be a widow at 48 years old, that was not in my game plan. Having James gone at 19 and a half years old was not in my game plan. We know things happen, and when's the best time to prepare is when we have that ability. And fortunately with Mike's mom, it could have had a whole lot different outcome with a whole lot more disastrous results in a whole confiscation of confiscation, is that the right word? Confiscation, did I use that right? Yeah, confiscation of assets. But it's putting all those pieces together and all those different working parts. My next goal is to get Mike so that he's willing to go to a day program and be able to have, again, other time served to doing things that will allow him to have day activity, to allow him to be able to create more social stuff. And what's the problem? It goes back to that same thing. His brother is perfectly content doing absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And we want him to do something, don't we? Mm-hmm. We want to convince him that doing something is phenomenal. So, any questions anybody has up here for Pat? Going once? Going twice? That must mean we're all getting hungry. What do you think?
I got to read this.
I already did.
This was unreal.
I already did. I got
saw
that
that in
today.
the paper?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
Go ahead, read it though. They're okay to hear it again.
No.
Sure. I don't want to take your. What? Yo.
As a brother of a child with special needs,
You know, I don't think growing up, I don't remember feeling angry. Honestly, it was when the situation that I'm in now, I'll admit, because I was given the full responsibility and executorship over Mike's care. And I have two sisters, and they live out of state. And so while I admit there was some there, like, wow, he's got other siblings too, and this is all on me. I have 3 children as well, working full-time, on and on and on. And so there were questions then, although my sisters have really stepped up. They've come, in fact, one of them is down here staying with him until we get these services in place right now. So that's kind of where that came in, asking kind of why. It was later, not earlier. No. Never. Never. Mm-mm.
And there will be some of that in a lot of our families, a lot of our situations. There's a lot of different dynamics that go on within our houses. You know, I've listened to parents sit there and talk about their 11 or 12-year-old child, quote, normal, defining normal, will be taking care of their child with special needs. It's like, how are you programming that child's thought process already? And you know, I've heard the response of, well, that's just the way it is. They don't have to worry about whether life's fair or not because life just isn't fair. And I'll even go back to when we were doing some of our planning and strategizing very early, and I've adopted my 2 older daughters. And at the time, James was probably about 2 years old as we were doing our development, and my oldest daughter, Jackie, was 22 years old. And she had said to me, she goes, Dad, I really want to take care of James if something happens to you and Mom. And I just looked at her and I go, Jackie, if that's the job you want, number one, you're 22 and single. Your brother's 2 and cute. 10 years from now, you may or may not be single, but I can guarantee you he's not going to be as cute as he used to be. And if your goal is to sit back and have that involvement, then my personal perspective, and again, all of us are going to have different thoughts. We're shaped by so many different things. But if your goal is to sit back and do that, then you better be hanging your shingle out right now as a single female with a special needs child. And because I felt somebody that was going to come into her life was going to have to wind up loving him more than her if that's the job that she wanted to take on. And again, there's no easy answer. Again, going back to, you know, brothers and sisters are brothers and sisters, whether they're special needs or not. And we all live in a house where one of the things that we haven't realized and haven't really prepared for, and there's a lot of things that we have to sit back and get in our own heads. We are disability families, period. Our households eat, sleep, and breathe in a disability environment. Everything that we do surrounds that special needs environment. And it's a lot of work. Again, whether you're a sibling who's having to take over, and boy, I do remember some of the conversations that Pat and I had about the situation and the frustration and the fears. And it was, but watching it all work, watching it all come together, it doesn't remove the emotions, it doesn't remove the battles, but having a plan and having a strategy in place and knowing what the strategies are so key and so important. Because what do we, with the golf tournament, what does it have? Plan A. As long as you got a plan A, you're in great shape. Because we know that plan A will never work out. But as long as we have a plan A set up, we have the ability to deviate from plan A. Because we do not have a license on making good decisions. We only have the license to make decisions. The same thing as our kids. And we have to be comfortable with all of that as we go through it. What time is it anyway? 11:40? Who's hungry? You guys hungry? What do you want to do? You want to talk? Let's tell jokes. You want to tell jokes?